Okay, and this is the dreaded game, Avalon Hill's Gunslinger. This is a Richard Hamblin game. Some Hamblin games aren't too bad. He did Victory in the Pacific, I believe. He did a whole bunch of just totally different games. Merchants of Venus, those weren't bad. But he also did Magic Realm, and this is closer to Magic Realm than it is to the others in terms of the scope and the style of the game and everything. What this is an attempt to create sort of the gunfighting duels and brawls and situations all in a very, very detailed design. Well, there have been other attempts to make very, very high detail tactical combat type games. What comes to mind for me, let's see, Chivalry and Sorcery, the role-playing game, tries to do it. It has sections of the rules that handle very detailed one-on-one combat. I think Adventure up here tries to do it. Maybe not quite at the level that this does. More maybe at the level of, let's see if I can find it, Zanti High Lightning and Snapshot. Let me think. There's more. I know there are more. Gladiator, I have that kicking around up here. I haven't played that either. And then there are ones that kind of work more on a role-playing level, like Arena of Death. Basically introduced you to a combat system in a dueling situation. And didn't really try to go much more detailed than a role-playing game generally would. A more detailed role-playing game, but still a role-playing game. And I feel like that has great advantages over the level of detail that this tries to put into play. But that's okay. You can see you get a lot of boards, and they're all double-sided, that allow you to create, all kinds of different towns and terrain that you want to do. I don't know what of this came with the game and what didn't. This, for example, looks like expansion material. This certainly looks like it's cut out of photocopies from the general. Although that doesn't look complete because I have this page which doesn't really link to anything and talks about pumas, which I assume those look like bison. Here's the pumas. And I don't know quite, I don't think I have the materials to play those really. You have a bunch of cards. Each player has his own little hand full of command cards. And this is going to be a pre-plotted movement or action game where you set down up to 5 points in actions. There's an action point cost on the card. And then this number, which I don't know what it is. And then there are some unassociated ones that players can get if they have advantages that allow them to have them. But this is sort of the base set. In fact, in the earlier scenarios, because unfortunately this uses programmed instruction, or maybe fortunately, because in some ways the programmed instruction works well here. You get a base game that works as the first scenario, as the first set. It may not allow you to play all the scenarios, but it works. And that's something very different from, say, Magic Realm, which gives you the first 3 or 4 scenarios. You kind of feel like, okay, I'm not really sure why I'm even playing this game. It's not a lot of fun. I feel like the first scenario on this is likely to be fun, although it can be expanded significantly. Okay, let's take a quick look at what we have. Characters are represented by these little counters. We got 2 different colors, actually more than that. If there's different sides, that'll work well. And then some kind of utility things. And I guess these tans give you a third side of gunfighters if you want to do threesomes. Delay markers, I don't know where they are. They're here in the colors. Those are going to represent if you get wounds or stunned or something like that, you get them and they count it on top of your actions, and they end up reducing what you can do in a turn. So the core of the game is you're going to select some of these cards Okay, I don't know. I think this is just a number indication of the card. Like this is card 6, and it is a hand card. It affects the hand, which I don't know how much that matters, unless you have a wound or something. The number here is how many of the impulses it's going to take. Each turn has 5 impulses in it. And if you don't complete something in impulse, I'm not actually sure what happens. I would think they'd carry over, but I'm not positive of that. Okay, and then a really, really dense rule book that is very procedural in nature and probably too detailed and procedural for my taste, which is why I'm going to kind of gloss over the rules here to give you an idea of play, which is probably better for you. And then during play itself, I'm going to be looking shit up all the time. So you pick your turns. If you've taken wounds that are continuous, like bleeding or something like that, if that exists here, you start marking off your endurance. And basically, if you use up all, in the base game you have 20 endurance, in other games you have per character endurance. If you use up all your endurance, you fall unconscious, and, well, what can happen can happen. It's also possible to get an instant kill. I don't know how likely any of it is. I haven't examined the results cards very heavily. You have a pile of these results cards which give you the effects of fire and some other special effects that come from them. Unfortunately, this is an old Avalon Hill game. It's, cards came like this. I haven't ripped these out. This is a used game. I should point out, the guy who sent it to me, really, really generous gift here. For my videos, every now and then a couple of people have sent me, a thank you gift of some sort or another. Lighter is one. Usually it's games, though. And I feel kind of compelled when I get a game to play it. And a game is probably the thing that makes me happiest. And one like this makes me very happy in terms of filling out my collection. It's not something I'm liable to play much solitaire, I think. And I'll probably only play one scenario of this. But I feel very guilty if I don't get it played. Even though there was no, precondition or anything. And, the guy gave me Carrier over there. He had 2 copies, and he offered me his unpunched copy if I promised to play it. And I said, within a year or something. I said, I can't make any guarantees on that, because I know it's a heavy game, and I know it's a solo game, and I just wasn't sure I wanted to commit to it. Well, he sent me his unpunched, and his punched copy, and that actually made me kind of happier because I didn't have to punch it. I still had to clip it and everything and read the rules, but I got it played. But this one I've been neglecting for a lot of reasons. One is the rules. Anyway, let's get back to this. So the position in the hexes is going to be important, and you have a little arrow indicating which way you're facing. Your arc of fire is going to come off that, kind of like front arc in SFB if you're used to that. Okay. So there should be a time track somewhere. I don't know. Maybe it's on each player sheet. No, there's a turn track. But there should be something to keep track of the fact that there's only 5 points of actions to keep the current action in under the number. Some extra little fake maps here for special cases. Lots and lots of charts. These are all reproduced in the rule book, but they'll be more handy where they are there. Okay. So let's take a look at what some of these actions look like. Back up. This is going to be a movement action. It allows you to basically go back 1 hex. And you can see it's got a cost of 3. It's a high cost action to back forward. Advance, this is just walking forward. It has a cost of 2. And it's got special rules listed here. Hey, you're going to get 2 extra delay points if you're crawling, essentially. load. When your gun is empty, you're allowed to load shells into it. If it's a break open gun, it takes one load marker to put each shell in it. Right? No, normal guns take one load to put each shell in it. A break open is going to allow you to open or close the gun, or if it's already open, you can fast load it with up to 5 shells at once. Cap and ball, you can load a third of a shell by playing this, and this has a high action cost. Cap and ball, you're like using your musket there. Okay, head out back. This is not in the first level of rules, but we're going to play this. Basically, characters should have little head markers, and they can take them off and throw them a hex forward from them, and that allows them a new point that they can use for a point of aim. Other players can aim at their head though at that point if they drop their head somewhere. I gotta be careful with that. You'll see I'll probably end up leaving my head lying around when I take it off and put it down, and that'll be kind of a problem. You should be putting your head back on if it's exposed, but you don't have to do this. If you just move, you automatically get your head back. Okay. Let us see. Run should not be on the other side of sprint. I'm looking for run because you've got this. Okay. Well, run is probably going to be a 1 or 2 point foot card, and if you want to sprint, you have to have ran, and you have to have been running last turn to get up to speed for a sprint. If you want to run, you have to have played an advance card earlier in the segment. So in order to go for the faster movement cards, you have to start by playing the advance, then the run, then the sprint. And I don't know where the run is. On the other side of this is turn, which allows you to change direction by one angle. And you could stay facing the same way you are. Okay. These are melee things, and I'm not sure I want to use these. Spin around allows you for 2 to face towards your back. Here's the run. And if you're running while you're crawling, you're not really running. You get more delay points built up. Leap drop. If you're standing up, you can be laying on the ground. If you're on the ground, you can stand up. Each counter has 2 sides. One side says down on it. That just indicates that you're, lying on the ground or something. Okay, draw and cock. So you name which weapon you have, and you might have several weapons on your sheet. You've got room for a whole bunch of different weapons and places where the weapons can go. You can have up to 4 of your weapons ammoed, holstered. Each of your hands can hold a weapon, but if you have a 2-handed weapon, it has to be in both hands to use it. And you can't use your offhand to fire unless you have that special ability to do so, which again is a more advanced rule. Okay, so draw and cock allows you to move a weapon from one of these boxes to another. And you're allowed to cock or uncock the weapon at the same time, or leave it unchanged. Now I think you're also allowed to do fan fire with this, where you just, if you draw it into a 2-handed position, you flip your hand over the hammer and fire off around that way, which is really a lot easier, but totally inaccurate. And that's why it says aim times 0. We haven't seen an aim yet. These are all melee. I don't think I'm going to play with the melee. Cock, aim, shoot. Okay. So you name an option and a target. And you have to have it in the proper hands box. The options are cock or uncock a game. Place 2 aim points. And I don't know how those are. Again, I haven't spilled out the counters and started playing. Here's some aim points here. Basically, you collect up aim points by keeping an aim on someone. And in this case, you'd get 2 additional ones. Or you could actually just shoot, in which case the aim time added to that is based on the type of weapon you're using. And you could also fan fire if you wish. I'm not sure why you would do that with this card. There's a shoot. This allows you to do nothing or shoot with a lower aim time. Now you see this has a lower action cost, so it gives you lower values on your shoot time. And strength, this is if you're using hand-to-hand weapons or throwing a weapon. It's going to give you a bonus. Well, either you can do a bonus to damage, which is add 2 to the penalties that you provide on the enemy, or you can add 4 to your wielding factor, which works kind of like aim time. And I'll explain those in a minute. Here's another cock aim shoot, and I think it's the same as the other one, with get up, get down on it instead of throw. Okay, so that's kind of your base hand, and we'll look in scenarios when we have these specials. So the specials may give you, like this one, gives you an additional draw and cock, I guess. Additional shoots and stuff. So they give you more options in your hand. And each character has his own little deck, which may include his own little bonus cards. Okay. So when you actually shoot, what you're going to do is flip over one of these cards, and you look to see if it's a fire card. What you're going to do is look at your aim time, and it might be based on the type of weapon, or it might be modified by the type of weapon, and the range. And a BE is what you want. That's a bullseye that hits directly, and you get to choose your location. Where it says like a specific location, like leg, you don't really have the choice there. Now, the target, what they're doing, affects things. So for example, here, if you move, if the target's moving, you'd miss their leg, and any BE becomes a leg hit. If you're firing at them, and you're firing at the head item, one of those disembodied heads, the leg hits end up missing. Now the stuff down here is bad effects that come from other things, so they'll be drawn, and you'll get them as a result of, say, a casualty or tripping or something like that. It's also possible to get a malfunction card. Now, if you draw a malfunction card, what you had is something went wrong, and you look at the type of weapon that you have, whether it's, the type of ammo that you had, and you see what happened in terms of the type of malfunction. Then you have to draw if you get a no effect from like store-bought ammo, which is really unlikely that you'll have that, but some characters might, then you draw another fire card and you get another chance to shoot them. Now, if you get a second malfunction, after you draw the malfunction, if you get a misfire, you have to draw for another malfunction card. And that, if you get another malfunction, you get the second draw effect. So in this case, gun explodes. It doesn't look like it hurts you. All right. So then whatever effects that you take that are penalties from being fired at, or from, say, dropping where it says delay, you take delay. Well, in that case, you draw 3 cards that for delay, and look up the delay points and take all of them. So that's, not a good option there. And let me see. Oh no, those are penalties that occur during the segment. That doesn't happen if you just drop on your own. How do those happen, though, is my question. On the hit chart, okay. So here, else where the weapons are. Okay, finding damage, hitting gun on the impact table, for example. So then I'd go over to the impact table over here, and I'd look at the type of gun and the location that it's at, and that would determine what it does. So if I get a kill, that's great, you know, they're out. But otherwise, like stun 4, I draw 4 cards for stun, and then I draw a card for gun hand, and then I draw a card for 2 cards for serious, and 6 cards for gun arm. And those would all take effect, whatever they say on there. So, for example, here, let's say I took that big hit there. Let's say I took this. So I'd be looking stun. I'd get 4 cards for stun. Well, there's no stun here. There's no stun here. Maybe I'm lying. Yeah, I'm not seeing those. I'm seeing delay wound hex tack. Okay, maybe there's a results listed somewhere else. I thought it would be, you know, intuitive to figure out how the combat happened when I looked at it. And it does not appear to be. Okay, well, we'll keep looking here. We're supposed to find... Okay, so we find this. Hit location. If the fire card leads to target status entry and the... They just go into so damn much. It's so fucking procedural. It just pisses me off, and I hate this kind of rule book. And I think it could have been... Okay. So, if I got a stun, I would draw in wound cards. Yeah, that's what they want to do. So, you have to look up in here, apparently, where the results that are listed on this table that you had to cross-reference to another table to get to, right? I mean, great design, you know? Okay, so then I'd draw 4 of these wound cards in this case, and I'd lose my aim, if I had any aim. So here I'd get 4, 6, 7, 8 delay points off that, and those would build up. At the end of the turn, if I still, any delay points I have sitting on my character get halved. So I slowly recover from any delay. Okay, so that was 4 stun. Then I look for other hand, and I'd look here. Any weapon in this other hand box drops to the hex. Great. Okay. And anything in both hands goes to my gun hand. Okay. And then the next result would be serious. I'd look for that somewhere. At the start of each turn, I draw end fatigue cards from then on. And I'd have to have some kind of marker telling me how much serious wounding I have on me. Other arm 6. I subtract N from my aim when I shoot the gun in both hands or the other hand's box. And we'd have all kind of chits, I assume, that handle all that. And yes, I haven't played it. I'm trying to get, you know, up into up to speed here. So then with Brawl, it actually works kind of like the firing does. I have these other actions that I can use. Now, if I happen to be... I have to be next to somebody to brawl, I think. And the aim time will be based on the weapon's wielding factor, and each weapon has its own chart somewhere in this mess. And, you know, I mean, it's just like... Why is this worth it for a board game? And there is... Yep. Can't see it here. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. Anyway, if anybody chooses to brawl, that means they have to read the rules on it. Basically, the weapons have a wielding factor on them. If I could find the weapons chart, I know it's in here, but maybe it's only over on this stuff. maybe it's not. Here's the weapons lists. Okay. So here's your melee weapons, and they have a wielding factor, and that's essentially the equivalent to the aim points that you have on there, and you'll use the fire table for that, I guess. There are cards that allow you to defend against stuff like block, which if you're doing the right defense during the time that the guy does this attack, then you prevent his card from happening at all, and you could cause some delay points. Okay. If you have aim factors enough aim factors on a target, the gun's range factor is going to affect the range on the gun that you have. Now, there's got to be a weapons table in here somewhere. We got such useless stuff in here like the wages table that you never will need to see when you're in normal play, that there just has to be a weapons table on here. But the answer seems to be no. The wages table is for if you're playing with the role-playing option. Okay. So what are we looking for here? The range. So you'll see most of the smaller handguns aren't going to have this, but the rifles have it. And that's basically a divisor where it says D that you put into the range. Now, the shotguns have Bs on them. They don't have normal range. They're going to have somewhere or another there's little shotgun blast markers. These might be them. And basically they go either out 7 hexes in a thinner line or 5 hexes in a wider spread. And that's who they're going to affect there. Fan firing takes both hands firing. It's done like a normal shot, except the aim time is always 0. Modified by skill and wounds. You can't have any aim on there. On that. Some guns are going to have double action, which means they automatically recock, but if they do, they reduce your aim value by 1. And that's because they kick a little more. And he goes into the fact that they don't use the police double-handed grip in the Wild West. You never see it in the movies, at least. He's done, research, he claims, and I don't know if that was ever used. I can't imagine it not being used by some people, especially with the double cock guns, because it will reduce the extra effort for pressing the trigger, which is really what's going on here. Is you have to pull the trigger so hard on a double cock or a double action that you're spoiling your aim a little. Shotguns end up hitting everybody in their blast. There's all kind of rules for handling that. Some guns are double barreled. You can fire off both barrels at once if you wish. Each character has his own ratings. So it lists here, if you're playing with specific characters, and this is already in the third set of the rule, third incarnation of the rules, you get certain bonus cards. And those are going to be these guys here that make you better, right? You also have skills, and these add as aim time for the 1- and 2-handed weapons. I don't know what BR. Brawling skill gives you an extra wield on brawling. OH is that you can use your other hand for weapons. That doesn't mean you can fire 2 guns at once, I don't think. But it does mean that you're semi-ambidextrous there. And if you have a 0, that's awesome. That means that you have no penalty for it. Normally, you're going to have a penalty on your offhand no matter what. ST is your stamina. Your base stamina is 20. That's what a dash means. If you're playing one of these characters with different stamina, it could be quite high, like John Henry here with 40. And these are sort of character archetypes rather than necessarily that you're actually John Henry. If you play the role-playing version, you get to become these over time by expending experience, essentially. And fear, geez, I don't remember what that is. Some LOS rules, the head counters. Those are particularly useful if you're like around a corner or something. You can take your head off and toss it around the corner. Rules for going through windows and the effect of obstacles, etc. All kinds of other stuff here. Okay. Then we get to where I'm not going to touch the game, but I'll still briefly go over some of this. I'm not going to play any of this stuff, but I think it's important that you get some overview of it in order to make your decision if the game is right for you. I had to plug in there. We'll see how well that works. The hunting rules allows for kind of a hidden movement type system where people are kind of moving around more rapidly over their turns because they haven't started firing at each other. They haven't found each other yet. And that could be very exciting. Personally, I would rather play... there was an old Nova game for gunfighters that was really cool, but that's only one-on-one where you're hunting each other through a town. Just like the Ace of Aces where you're flipping open a book, you know, for different locations. Well, instead of just positional, here you've got the whole town built into the book. It was really an awesome idea. Then the campaign rules. The first campaign idea is just, hey, you've got a bunch of characters in a couple of gangs, and you assign them to scenarios, and you fight it out. And, you know, some people survive each scenario, and you kind of get to keep going. Okay, that's kind of cool. But then the next is this role-playing system, and role-playing with a very large dose of salt in it. Basically, what it is systems for determining how happy your character is after the engagements, how much money they have, you know, people they kill end up giving them bonuses, etc. in terms of fear. They end up getting experience levels and stuff like that. And I could see a group that was really into this game wanting to throw that in just to make the game keep going, because there's a limited number of scenarios. There's a good number, but it's limited. I can't see using this game as the core for a Wild West type role-playing game. If you want to do that, just get Boot Hill. The combat's simpler. If you throw too much detail in a combat system in a role-playing game, you're ruining the role-playing experience. At least that's my opinion. Now we got some optional rules, and I am just not going to touch these. Most of them are, you know, specific scenarios, climbing up on the roof and stuff like that. Maybe in a specific scenario that'll make sense, and I'll want to drag that in or put a horse into the game. And then I think the stuff that comes here in the expanded from the general was meant to do that kind of stuff too. A little bit of designer's notes. This is repeated in the charts. It looks kind of helpful, actually. And then we have the specific scenarios, and I think there's like 20 of them in here. Nope, more than 20. Lincoln County War. So if you're a fan of Young Guns, there's like three scenarios from Billy the Kid. And you'll recognize each of them as scenes in the movie, although you might kind of say, wait a minute, the movie didn't happen in that order. But I would trust his research better than the movies, probably. And then we have these campaign scenarios, which are really just linked sets of scenarios and some repeats of the chart. All right. So I didn't give you a real rules overview here. This isn't as much of an instructional as I like to give, but I think it gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on, and we'll move on to the next. And as always, please go visit the game box. It's the best way to look at the organization of my vids. There's a lot of stuff there. It's all done by era and topic rather than, you know, my list on Board Game Geek is just, I tried to impose order on things there. I tried to break it out into lists. It became easier just to move it all over to the game box, and it's a great forum. So it's just the easiest way to access these. There's other people who are providing content that's pretty good, actually. All right, let's send it up.